This video is to demonstrate how to open a chart and create a chart for a consumer or client. We do want to create a chart as soon as we get the referral, or if someone's calling in to schedule an appointment. We're not able to schedule appointments, nor are others to able to see what's happening with that case if we've not created a chart. So we want to do that as soon as we have this information. This video will demonstrate how to do that. And so if I go to patients, I can add a new patient here, and do that by starting to write in. We can also put preferred name. It's okay that you can put in, like, let's say I have an individual that identifies as transgendered, and they might have a preferred name that I can put that name here if we want to. We can put in date of birth. We want to have that information. That's a necessary piece that is in our charts. We also need to have social security numbers in our charts. Those are necessary for identifying the payer source and to be able to identify how to identify the insurance program if a person loses or doesn't have access to their insurance card. We also want to have the street address. We need a phone number here as well. I'll put my number just in case here. And we can decide if voice and text messages. So we want to ask that question if we have the opportunity. If, let's say, we don't know that at this particular point, we may not leave a message at first. And then at my first meeting with them, I do want to ask this question so that I can respect their rights around, do they want text messages? Do they want voice messages? Are they okay with both of those? Or they want no messages at all? Some consumers, some families are sharing phones with other people. And so sometimes we may not want to leave messages because that may share information that would be confidential or they want to keep private. We also want email addresses as much as we can possibly get. And so I'll just put my email address here. And email addresses are also available, and this is just, this do not use as me. 7/1/1982. My birthday is 1982. So 7/6 actually. So you can know my birthday, July 6th. And so email addresses are important because over time we might have different resources or different tools, fact sheets that we might end up sending out to all consumers. And so when we do this, we'll be using that email address. Also, if we end up wanting to use the patient portal, that email address would be necessary to be able to use that patient portal. If a person's doing telehealth supports, then they may end up using the patient portal to share documents for signatures, etc. The default is no reminder, so we don't want to do appointment reminders at this particular point. So everybody should say no reminders. The gender, sex, gender, we can select that. What is their gender identity? So we might have the administrative sex and then gender identity. What do they identify as? And so, like in this scenario, it might be a transgendered person that identifies maybe male, but identifies as female. Sexual orientation might be something that is also part of this. And so we can ask that individual, how do they identify? And they, we want to follow whatever that is. We want to put in race. Language is important, their primary language. Someone might have a secondary language. That's okay to be able to include. Someone also might have more than one race. And it's okay for, like, an individual that might be biracial we want to include the multiple races. So the more information here is helpful in helping capture their identity and sharing that with other people too. So if a person's answering the phone as an example, or if they call in and they're talking with a receptionist or a care support provider, that person can then call them Susie, right? Or call them her if they identify as a female. And so that is very helpful for us to be able to have this information. We want to share or collect marital status, employment, maybe they're a full-time student, whatever that might be. At your first meeting, you may not have this when you've got the referral. You may not necessarily have this information, but we do want to make sure that we have the guardian or the patient, so 12 or older, or the guardian of 11 and under, to be able to sign a form that basically says that they understand HIPAA, limits of confidentiality. That is our consent form. So once they sign that form, I'm going to come back into this chart. I'm going to check this box. For primary care provider, release of information. This is a default that we want to be able to get releases for both school and primary care provider for all youth at the very least, and for primary care providers for all adults at the very least. However, consumers can refuse or decide they don't want us having release to be able to communicate with those providers. And so we want to put at the very beginning, we may not have that set, but then as it goes on, or after our first meeting, we may then say they consented to release information, they declined to release information, and one of those two options would be something that we want to be able to do. And again, that's going to represent consent, a release of information, consenting that we can release that information. Also, we want to add contacts. So if it's a youth, like in this situation, this youth is 7 years of age. If it's a youth, I want to have contact information here for their caregiver. And that could be their aunt, their uncle. It doesn't have to be biological parent, but I want to have that contact information, and then any other relevant contacts. As we look at our electronic health record system, is not only a place for me as the provider to be able to access that information, but also to be able to coordinate amongst multiple providers and multiple support staff that may all need to be able to reach and connect with families. And so we want to add that information here, and as many contacts that are relevant, but at least for every youth, we should have a caregiver contact here. Caregiver contact, oftentimes the phone number for the caregiver may be up here. It's just going to be repeated down here. And this information is up here is focused on the youth's information. This down here may be focused on the caregiver or the guardian's information. That concludes how to open a chart, how to create a chart for a new consumer or client.